Are you the Machon Meir WhatsApp?
I don't know. You could add me.
Catch some more fish?
Go.
I was just thinking about the others, but I don't just say stuff.
I know.
054
I do.
215 6447.
How long are you going for?
Full.
Really?
Yeah. 22.
So that's interesting.
He's probably. I made all last year.
Right, so they count it from your earlier.
Yeah.
Hi, Yosef. Good evening, Shlomo. Oh, wow. We'll turn on the volume here. How do I do that? There we go.
Yeah.
Erev
I'm
Tov.
in the regular army.
Okay.
Can I see our viewers? Do I get to see this?
Yeah, I know.
Send me the link. Good. Thank you very much.
Interesting ideas of what you want to do with your
Post that.
Yeah, I want to do combat and as best as possible.
Yeah.
That's what the shame. Usually, older units are for people
Tov,
like
let's
studied
begin.
in yeshiva for like 4 or 5, 6 years and like already like 25 in their families, but like need to draft or something like that.
Thank you very much.
You do basic training,
Yeah.
and then like you do basic training, like and then you do like 3 years of yeshiva,
Oh, you mean
like
that? Yeah.
for college or something, and then you come back to something like that. I forget.
Gentlemen, do you have questions we should begin with? Okay.
I have a good question.
He had a few questions we were about to deal with.
Okay, then let's take. We'll go in
Yeah. You want to tell me what your questions are? Let's go around and everyone will tell me their names. Let's start with that. That's always a good way to begin. Okay, my name's Natanel Frankenthal, and I've been at Machon Meir for a number of years now. I was born in Israel, and I grew up in upstate New York. Yes.
We're in upstate.
Rockland County.
We're in Rockland County.
Muncie, New York.
Muncie's upstate.
Born in Suriname.
Rockland County.
Received the link?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Technically, yes, but
Okay, let him introduce himself. Israel what?
I did both.
Havan.
Hanan Shulman.
Yes. Chavo, do you want to introduce yourself? Where you from? You want to introduce yourself? Where you from? You.
oh me?
Yeah.
Well, name's David Israel or David Bradley.
Where you from?
Originally from Connecticut. Most of my life in California, a little town called Pacifica, just south of San Francisco on the coast, and made Aliyah about 2.5 years ago.
Very nice. Chavo.
My name is Shiur. Family lives in the south. I was born in the eastern part of India, but most of my life has been in Delhi. And I made Aliyah a couple of years ago, 2 days right before the national lockdown. It was from Rabbi in where I used to daven. Chabad Rabbi. He told me, now or never. I came in India. We don't have any news about COVID because it was just a start. So people thought it's just a flu, not serious. But then when the moment I arrived in Israel, a couple of days, Bibi announced that's all. So I'm here, and I've been learning for a little bit more than 2 years now. And I've always been around for 2000. Sure, it's just that too many students, so he doesn't recognize me. But for I've been learning with Frankenthal for 1 year.
Oh wow!
But in between was like on and off, on and off. So 1 year was like I was always doing this. I got to know that I have to do Giyul Khumrah, coming from Sirin Menashe, basically like it's mandatory for the Rabbanim. So, Baruch Hashem, I completed in February of this year. I'm
Wow.
in the middle of the process of Aliyah. Hopefully it looks like everything fine.
Very nice. You want to introduce yourself? Hamon. Shlomo, I don't know if it's our connection or yours, but we don't hear you.
Okay. I was born in the United States. I'm from Israel.
Shlomo Bloom is signing in from Kiryat Arba. Where are you now?
Philly.
What? Eli?
Philly.
Oh,
Philly.
I was right next to you this week. Yefem.
Where were you? Shiloh?
Yeah. I was in Shiloh this week.
So I've been in Israel for 47 years and another week is 47 years and a month. I live in Italy. I've been at the Machon since 1981 after I got out of the army.
Wow. Wow. Okay, and we have Yosef Efrati signing in from, I'm not sure where. Where are you?
Shiloh.
You're in Shiloh?
I'm in Kibbutz.
Kivat Asaf, so I thought. Okay. Kivat Asaf, very nice. And where is Mr. Grefstein signing in from?
Neil Alter is signing in from Machon Meir.
Wow. Okay.
You can come down
So
to
we have people from all over signing in. Very nice. Okay, let's begin. What questions do people have? There was a question here about kashrut earlier. There was a question about Sefer Torah. So let's start running through the questions. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, give me 1 second. The question was asked if a person is in shul and they open the Arna Kodesh and they take out the Sefer Torah just to roll it to the right place because they're reading in the Torah tomorrow, the next day, or whatever. Do we have to stand up? So the Talmud says that when a Torah scroll is moving, when it's in motion, when it's not placed, so then we do have to stand up. The opening of the ark does not make it mandatory to stand up. Our custom is that when the ark is open, we stand up, but that's not really mandated by the Talmud or the Shulchan Aruch. It's a custom, so we respect customs. But let's say at the end of Yom Kippur, during Ne'ilah, when for most of Ne'ilah, almost all of Ne'ilah, the Arna Kodesh is open, and you're after a whole day of fasting and davening and you're tired. So if you want to sit down, you can sit down. But if they're taking out the Sefer Torah and you want to sit down, you should walk outside shul to sit down. You shouldn't sit down in shul. Because when the Torah is in motion, you're not supposed to be seated, even if they're just taking it out to roll it. Once the Torah is on the bima, so then our custom is that we do sit down. But when the Torah is actually being held and in motion, then the halach is we should not be seated. We should stand in respect of the Torah. Okay, next question. So yes.
Should one technically have his restaurant open during the 9 days?
So the question was asked, if a person owns a restaurant and they're serving meat and they want to know if they can stay open during the 9 days. Well, the Sephardim are eating meat, so they're a larger percentage than Ashkenazim in this country. So why wouldn't a person be allowed to leave his restaurant open? Yeah, why not? You have Sephardim, and you don't have to know who's a Sephardi and who's an Ashkenazi, and who just underwent a blood transfusion and they need meat to strengthen themselves. So you don't know. Toda Rabah. So yeah, that would be okay.
If you're in somebody's house, you're Sephardic.
Yeah.
Usually, if I'm in somebody's house, a Shomer Shabbos, Shomer Kashrut, I eat what they eat.
Okay.
Would that be true in this case?
Well, if they're serving you meat, how could you eat what they're eating? Your
That's
custom
what
is
I'm
not to
saying.
eat
In other words,
meat.
would there be leniency on that so as not to embarrass them?
What's the embarrassment? They know your custom is you're Ashkenazi, you don't eat meat now.
And then, if not mamish meat, but like something like in my home, I wouldn't cook rice in basari pan this time of year.
Right? Besari pan is mutter, but the remnants of the chulin, something that was cooked with meat itself, is also.
So directly, but the indirect meat that we
Correct.
normally would not cook on our own would become mutter.
No problem.
If you're making a seam, the meat's okay.
Correct. Mr. Grafstein's always finishing things, so he has a lot of siyum, I
What
guess.
did he say?
If you're making a seam, it's okay. Okay, Mr. Bloom had a question. Yes.
Actually, I have two questions.
Okay.
Following this week,
I'll tell you, we can't hear you, so I need you to write the question. We're not hearing you.
1 second.
Mr. Bloom, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, this second we do. We'll try again.
Okay. Shockwave, one of the Kohanim, he went up to the Aron Kodesh, and it was right next to the Aron Kodesh, and he was davening Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei, the Kohanim were called. He was not finished with the Shemona Esrei. He turned around and he gave the only Kohanim, he gave the normally, then he turned around and he finished, he turned around and finished doing the Shemona Esrei.
I don't know. I have to look it up. I don't remember well enough. Sorry. He might be right. I don't know.
The second question is, when I'm listening to YouTube, if someone makes a bracha, I assume I don't think saying Amen. True or not?
Okay. The question was asked if you're listening to YouTube and someone makes a blessing, it's not live. Do you answer Amen? So if it's not live, then it's a machine that's saying a blessing. We don't say Amen after a machine's blessing. You could.
Speaker for you so that you can hear better.
Oh, toda rabah. But if it is live, then you could answer Amen. Yeah, I'll tell you. I would rather not. I don't connect things to my thing.
Oh, okay.
Toda rabah.
For that point, what about for a minion? Like, are you going to have pretty much a Zoom minion?
I would say not, but you don't have to ask me.
So then I'll bring up another one. Shlomo was there, made me wonder. What about if you finish a tractate? Are you learning on Zoom together? Can you have a virtual siyum?
No. You could celebrate together, but to say Kaddish, you need 10 people in the same room. You could play a recording of someone saying Kaddish and play a recording of people answering Amen. That you could do. Right? That's not my answer. That's the answer that Rav Yonatan Eibshitz gave. When they asked Rav Yonatan Eibshitz, when he was a little boy, they asked him, can a woman light, instead of 2 Shabbos candles, 1 Shabbos candle? But you'll put it next to a mirror and then there'll be 2. So is that okay? So he said no. So they asked him why. So he said, because the one that's here is for the woman that's here, and the one that's in the mirror is for the woman that's in the mirror. So, same thing here. It's not, no. Okay, do we have more questions? Yes.
So, according to the Ramban, it's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Israel. Rav Moshe Feinstein has like an interesting response where he says it's kind of confusing. I'm not exactly sure. It's like an optional, circumstantial, personal mitzvah. Can you explain, if you know the response, can you explain what Rav Moshe Feinstein means? And is there an obligation on every Jew? Are they failing to fulfill positive mitzvah if they don't move to Eretz Israel?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shekol niyeh b'ro.
Amen.
I haven't reviewed it recently, so you can't say I'm giving you an accurate description of the tshuva, but I'll try as best as I remember to explain what Rav Moshe Feinstein says. I believe that if you go on my website, 123torah.com, there's at least one, if not two, classes in the Q&A section where I actually go through Rav Moshe's Shita. But then I must have reviewed it. Now I don't remember. So I'm going to try to explain what I remember. Rav Moshe Feinstein says like this. There are actions that when you do them, you perform a mitzvah, but you don't have to do them. So there are many mitzvahs like that. I don't have to buy a house in order to put up a mezuzah. But if I have a house, now I need to put up a mezuzah. And when I put up a mezuzah, I'm doing a mitzvah. I don't have to buy a garment in order to wear tzitzit. Even if I bought the garment, I don't have to wear tzitzit unless I wear the garment. But if I bought the garment and I wear the garment and I have tzitzit on the garment, I'm fulfilling a mitzvah. So there are things in the Torah that when you perform them, you're fulfilling a mitzvah. So you don't have to perform them. So far, so good. So if I remember correctly, Rav Moshe Feinstein's approach is living in Israel is not something where you could say every Jew has to come live in Israel. But those who are living in Israel are fulfilling a mitzvah. It's not that it's not a mitzvah, it is a mitzvah. But the fact that it's a mitzvah doesn't mean you have to go and do that mitzvah. Okay, that's to the best of my recollection. That's what Rav Moshe writes. Again, it's a long tshuva, but that's a quick summary. Yeah. Okay.
If we this Sunday we're down to Kotel for Tish B'Av, we see a friend we haven't seen in a month. Do we say Shechiona?
So our custom is we don't say Shechianu over that. Anyways.
What?
Our custom is not to say Shechianu over that.
You do.
So ask that Rabbi what he says.
Okay.
Yosef has a question. I'll get to you in a minute, Asher. Yes, Yosef. We don't hear you. Okay, I still don't hear you. Yeah. Now I hear you.
For the Tisha B'Av, they say there are the three things like Shkut, Tamim, and all the three things that's the cause for the destruction of the temple and everything. But it's like I don't understand that the people woke up and they started killing each other, or it's like what happened before? It's like is there anything that they started with a small thing, whatever they did, and came up to these three big sins? Do you understand that? It's like a people might have done they mention the Chazal say that there are three sins that are causes for the destruction. But those who are coming to these big sins, is there anything that not any other small thing that they started with and ended up like this, or they straight away did this all three sins directly? And what is the tikkun for our generation? Like, what do you think is tikkun for our generation? Repeating
I didn't hear what you asked. What is the one?
what is the tikkun for our generation nowadays? Now, do you think what's the tikkun that I should do also? Everyone is like, is there any general thing that we should do that towards the way to make towards our generation?
So, I don't know. Yosef asked like this. He said, our sages tell us that in the first temple era, so Am Yisrael was committing the three harshest crimes. They were doing Avodah Zarah, paganism, Gilui Arayot, illicit relations, and Shfichut Damim, and murder. So he said, do we know to point the finger at where it all started? Meaning, very often when there's something wrong, so it starts with something small and it leads to something big. So do we know where to point to? I think that the we have one Gemara, but it doesn't really address this question. Meaning the Gemara says, Al me'avda haaretz, that they asked why did this happen? And Hashem answered, Al ozvam et torati. Hashem said, we read it, that's the Haftarah of Tisha B'Av itself. Al me, right? So, Al ozvam et torati, right? Yirmiyahu quotes the answer, and the Talmud says they asked all the wise men, they asked everyone, they couldn't figure it out, and then the answer they were given is al shelo bechu b'torah tchila, that they didn't make a blessing on their learning Torah. They learned Torah, but they didn't learn it right. So technically, that's where things evolved from. So I don't know if that Gemara is really addressing this question. I think that when it comes to in Eicha, the indication is that it was the leadership that led us down this path. When we look at, there's a distinct difference between the first temple period and the second temple period. In the first temple period, you see a lot about the leadership, and when the Navi Jeremiah tells us the temple is going to be destroyed, so he points a finger at the leadership. It's only when you start reading Eicha that you start reading about other things that were going on, and even then, what does Jeremiah say? Says, Mechatot Neviyeha, Avonot Kohaneha, Hashofechim Bekirba, Dam Tzadikim. In the third chapter, Yirmiyahu points a finger, and he says, Mechatot Neviyeha, the transgressions of her false prophets, Avonot Kohanea, the transgressions of her priests. So you had a situation there was really a mafia running Israel at the time of the first and second temple. The mafia was the priests and the false prophets and the king during the first temple era. And the nobles, right? You had the governors of the different areas who were exploiting their power. And in the second temple era, so also you see there were mafias in the Beit HaMikdash, and you see the rabbis fled from Jerusalem. Right? They went to Tzfat, they went to Tveria, they went to Beit Shan. They went pretty far away to teach Torah. Coming back here, there's a distinct difference, though, between the first and the second temple era. In the first temple era, we see a lot about the leadership. A lot of what's discussed is the leaders. If it's the kings, if it's the priests, if it's the false prophets. Second temple era was a different existence in Israel. You see the stories of the destruction in the Talmud in Gittin. Those stories are really focused on individuals and individual communities. It's only the destruction of the actual Beit HaMikdash where we start seeing what's happening in the temple with the mafias that were running things there. But everything else seems to be the people. The story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. So the rabbis were present, but Kamsa and Bar Kamsa were people. They were from the common folk. So my impression, I don't know of a place where it spells it out, but my impression is that the first temple, it's the leaders that led us astray. And that's a recurring theme in the prophets. And when you have false prophets who are telling people that they should murder or they themselves are murdering, or you have a king who has the high priest murdered on Yom Kippur, on Shabbat, in the Beit HaMikdash, and he's the Kohen Gadol. You guys know the story? You don't know the story. Okay.
Two for yourself. Okay. For you would be
Huh?
for the two for yourself would be 170.
170?
I know it's just makes sense.
No, so don't get me any. No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Huh?
Okay. You want me to take care of it? You want me to? So that's what I'm asking. Do you want me to do it? Did you order yet, or do you want me to order? So I'll order. Give me 1 second. Forgive me to all our listeners. We're ordering pizza, and you're invited to come to Machon Meir and have a slice. I'll be happy to have you here. Give me 1 second. You remember when you were here, we ordered it for you too. Erev Tov. Baruch Shem. Good. What's your name?
Framowitz.
Framowitz? Related to the Framowitz from Muncie? Ah. So we probably knew one another back in Muncie, no? I grew up in Muncie. Yeah. Give me 1 second. No, I just want to see who our listeners are. Can I see?
Okay.
How do I see?
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe. Not sure.
Previous times when we recorded, I was able to see. At least how many we had. So. Shalom. How many do we want to order? ערב טוב, אפשר בבקשה להזמין למכון מאיר? What's your phone number?
53
03
539
539
Give my number, 051.
רק שנייה, אני פה צריך לאסוף את המספר. Your number? אוקיי. 051, סליחה, אני מתחיל מחדש, בסדר? 051
It's just pizza. Okay. I wasn't given any instructions. How many pies do you think we need? I don't know. I don't know what they are. Usually we do 4, right? Okay, which ones are they? There's 2 sizes. See? I wasn't given any instructions.
Say there, just leave me the envelope. I'll deal with it. Don't worry about it.
Was I given instructions?
Or just give me the envelope. I'll deal with it. Don't worry. I wasn't even given instructions, so whatever I do is right. What's your number? 051
553
553
2904.
04 נתנאל פרנקנטל פרשנון קנ"ט ל. כן, מכון מאיר, שדרות המאירי 2 בקריית משה. אנחנו, כמה עולה כל 2 מגשים? זה המגשים הגדולים. 2 דה. אוקיי, אז אני חושב שניקח בבקשה. Actually, you think we're going to eat 4 pies? Yeah? אנחנו ניקח 6 מגשים. 6 של 109. 3 של 109. 6 מגשים. Shirley from which you grew up in Muncie for Shay?
Me actually, I'm from New Square.
From New Square. Ah, okay.
From where?
Tom, so they'll call your phone, Shirley.
Yeah, they just sent me something.
Ah, okay.
It's 337 shekels.
Yes, I paid with a credit card, so I get to keep the cash. Good. So you could give the listener back 10 shekels. Thank you. And I should bring 2 more. Say that. We'll square even later. Say that. This is our ATM machines in the Yeshuvim where you don't have a normal ATM machine. Pay by credit card and take cash when you can get it. So, to our listeners on Zoom, because Baruch Hashem, as you probably know, Corona is not so affecting our lives these days, I was able to close my paid account in Zoom, which means that in 6 minutes and a half, this is going to close, and then I'll reopen, and you could rejoin using the same link. Okay? Just say there. Yosef, it's exciting to see your daughter. Okay, so we move on.
Okay, you just brought up
To your son. Okay. Wow, I remember the bris. So it makes sense it's your son. Okay. Say there. Yes.
So you just brought up one. So you pay by credit card.
Yes.
They charge you 3 shekels 85 agarot. Because
Really?
because when they use credit cards, they do down to the exact agarot. Now you go to be reimbursed by somebody. Which way do you round that? What's the halakhically correct way of dealing with it?
I don't know. But the assumption is that between 2 Jews, everyone's mochel on less than a shave pruta. And I think 5 agorot is less than a shave pruta. I think so.
How much is a shave pruta? I know it's less than
Pruta today. I have to look it up. I don't know. Pruta. You could look it up. You'll tell us. Okay. Yes. Asher, good evening. Yes.
So, I mean, like, I'm not judging anyone or anything, but in general, because we've been learning about Musar of Judaism, Jewish life, and the most important thing is to understand what you're doing, to understand what is the reason for certain things that we're doing in Islam or in Tisha B'Av. But what I see in general is instead of understanding that Tisha B'Av meant something in all of the Jewish history that our temple was destroyed. And so a lot of mishap happened. But the main reason why we are fasting, why are we being mahmir or not doing something which makes us happy for all this a week or 9 days or sometimes 2 weeks? I find more people are more concerned about what is the halal. What is the halal? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to not to do this? Am I allowed to watch? I say like, if I really do, I'm not saying that they're asking something wrong. It's true, but from inside, from me, I'm being a sufferer. I'm a sufferer. I suffer a sufferer. However, I understand the pain that we have as a Jew. How much it meant for us not to have a temple. And how much grief is not to have that, and how much we long to have that when Mashiach will come. And the reason why I'm fasting, the reason why I'm trying to get away from all this happiness, meat or maybe anything, is because of the grief and the longing for the temple. But instead, I find people are more concerned about, am I doing right? Is this the halakha? Is this not the halakha? I mean, sometimes the kavanah of the grief of Isha B'Av is less and more onto what is to present, what is not to present. And what is Harav advice or suggest on what exactly should a Jew, doesn't matter where he comes from, maybe in any minhag, but in their heart, in their kavanah, in their spirit, what should be the true, the right way of understanding Tisha B'Av? And these 9 weeks, no, sorry, 9 days and these 3 days in general.
Want the long answer or the short answer? Okay, this is such an important question that I don't want you, our Zoom listeners, to miss out when Zoom closes. So I'm going to shut the Zoom and reopen, and you guys could relog on, and that way you won't miss it in the middle. It won't shut off on us. So I'm closing it, reopening it, and you're invited to relog on in 3 seconds.
Si tu as besoin, il faut l'amaser. Il n'y a pas d'idéal et il faut l'amaser. Il n'y a pas d'idéal. Le lamaser, c'est pour les gens comme toi ou comme moi.
Okay, no one signed it.
Well, we're ready to reconnect for the serious question. Quick one. Can you bless your children if they're not physically present on Shabbos?
You mean over the phone?
Yeah, you could. But it might be better of doing it over the phone before Shabbat.
Well, you say the blessing even without the phone.
Oh, you mean just say the blessing like?
Why not do it over the phone on Friday?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I thought it would be better to hit the right time and.
I would do it over the phone.
Plus, with them hearing it, the affection.
We used to have a morning
There's
party.
the effect on them, but there's also the effect on the world and his mind. Anytime we say a blessing.
A very good question was asked, and I'm going to go on a tangent that involves marriage and life to try and address this question, okay? So the question that was asked was people sometimes perform acts to commemorate the destruction of the temple or other mitzvot, and their heart's completely not there. So is it right that people are so focused on the laws and missing the spirit? So we all know that you're supposed to be connected to the spirit of the mitzvahs, right? Vatihila yiratam oti, the Navi says, mitzvat anashim lumada. Their whole practice of Judaism became just habit, and obviously the Navi speaks about that. But I want to go off into married life for a minute, and we're going to learn an important concept about married life. And then we'll come back to the applications in regards to this question, okay? So let's begin with marriage. You know, it's a good marriage. Couple's married, everything's great. And then like all good marriages, so they have times where they're more lovey-dovey and less lovey-dovey. And then there are times where they actually have a fight. And there are times where they're actually upset at one another. So that's a normal marriage, by the way. That's called a good marriage, okay? A good marriage, you're going to have fights sometimes. Now, so he gets up that morning. How could you tell me that last night? Right? He's all upset. Now, does he take the kids to school? No, let her take the kids to school. Does he put the milk back in the fridge? Let her put the milk back in the fridge. Does he take out the garbage?
No, let her take out the garbage.
So you have to realize, wait a second, does he pay the bills? Does he pay the electric bill? How far are we going to go? You know? So you have to realize that what you want in life is to raise the bar as high as possible in your relationships. That you take out the garbage and you take the kids and you put the milk in the fridge and of course you pay the electric bill and you prepare her cup of iced coffee that she wants to see on the kitchen counter when she wakes up that morning. And you're going to say, I don't mean it. I don't want to give her anything, you know. I want to give her a piece of my mind. I'm going to leave her. The higher you set the bar, the greater your relationship is going to be. Now, you know that from your kids, right? I'm going to tell you. Story. Kid got very upset at his father. So the kid's yelling, the father's yelling back, and the kid's yelling, and the father's yelling back. And the father tells him, you can't talk that way. And now you're grounded. Don't leave your room for the next whatever. And the kid says, I don't want to see you anyways. And he slams the door. And as he slams the door, his finger gets caught in the door. Now, suddenly everything's gone. Doesn't matter. The father's by his side. How's your finger? What's going on? Why? Why? Is he now going to say, oh, serves you right? No. What does that mean? He's your son. Come on. Of course you're going to be there for him 1,000,000%. And everything else becomes irrelevant. Because your relationship is the way it should be. So in a normal relationship, there's no bargaining. There's no, we're in this together for life. Finished. I'm your father. You're my son forever. Come on, you like me more. You like me less. I like you more. I like you less. That's it. We're together. Well, you know what? That's what you want in marriage. But it's up to you. The day that you say, I'm not paying the electric bill, the day that you say, I'm opening a separate bank account, the day that you say, well, I'm going to a motel tonight, forget it. The day that you say, I'm not putting the milk back in the fridge, now you're making things negotiable. What you're creating, and again, the lower you set the bar, the more you're destroying the relationship. The higher you set the bar, the more you're saying, that's a given. What do you mean? Of course. What does that mean when you make that iced coffee? That means, even though I'm upset, I'm upset, but it's a given. I love you. We're building this life together, and of course I'm going to do even those little things. Again, the higher you set the bar, the better your relationship is going to be. The more uncouth you're going to be in your relationship, the more you're going to let it go. Now, wait a second. Mr. Asher, I'm going to ask you a question. Your wife is sleeping, and you're making that iced coffee. I heard the class. I'm supposed to make that iced coffee. I'm a nice guy. I'm going to make that iced coffee. But you don't mean it. Where's your heart? You understand what I'm saying? The Kuzari, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, writes a story. We know that deep in Russia, they found the remnants of the city of Kuzar. It was a city that converted to Judaism, right? They had a king. You have to know that king in ancient times wasn't always like, could be what we would call a governor, but it doesn't matter. They converted. And in the beginning of the book of the Kuzari, so the king has a dream. And what do they tell him in the dream? You have the best intentions, but you're getting it all wrong. You're doing the wrong actions. So Christianity makes this big deal about your intentions. Now, they're not completely wrong. Intentions matter, right? Intentions matter tremendously, but not the way they say. I'll give you an example. You have a guy who's cleaning up the house. I can't stand it. My mother asked me to clean this house. He's cleaning. He's doing it. Then you have a guy who, I'm so happy. I came to change my son's diaper this morning. So he's about 1 year old. And I looked at him and I said, listen here. You got to explain something to me. And he's smiling at me. And I said, I don't get it. I'm going to change your diaper. but I don't have a way of thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom that you're healthy and you made a diaper. Explain something. You're not saying an Asher Yotzer, and I can't say an Asher Yotzer for you, but we both have to say thank you. You're healthy. Baruch Hashem. We're changing your diaper now. You're lucky. You're healthy. Other kids, you don't want to know. So he didn't know what I was talking about, right? I was talking to the wall. But what are you saying? I was so upset. Why can't I say thank you, Rabbi, and show him the boy's healthy? Right? Be'emet, I have what to thank for, I'm standing there, now his diapers are not pleasant these days, or whatever. We won't go there. But I'm thinking to myself, Baruch Hashem, he can do this. Good. Baruch Hashem. So it's not enough to have the heart without the action. It's not enough to have the action without the heart. And and if you look at changing a diaper as, boy, am I lucky, you're healthy, I can change your diaper. Baruch Hashem. So now suddenly changing a diaper just became a whole different experience. But if you look at it as, son, you're doing this way too often. This is not what I signed up for when I signed into parenthood. So now changing a diaper became a different experience, right? Now, so intention matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but getting it right on what I do also matters. And sometimes in life, it's more important that I get the action right than the intention right. And when you're new, so then you see the question of people, where's your heart? I don't get it. It feels like you're all fakers. Your heart's not in it. I remember a certain student at Machon Meir about 12, 14 years ago. He had a big complaint. He said, I go to these minyanim, they daven so fast. Where's their heart? Where's their intention? What kind of prayer is this? What's going on here? You're talking to God. What's wrong with you? And he had all the right complaints, okay? So I listened patiently, and I accepted his complaint, and I said, you have a point, okay? And then at the end I said, let's talk in a decade. He said, what do you mean? I said, let's talk after for 365 days a year. You've been getting up and davening 3 times a day, and let's discuss how your davening is going. So I happened to visit the shul where he's a gabbai. Baruch Hashem, he's been learning, he finished all the Rambam, he finished Mishnah Brura, he's covered half a Shas. 13 years ago I came to Machon Meir, he couldn't read Hebrew. Okay, this is a beautiful story of a guy who did Shiur here, and today he's accomplished a lot. So I come to the shul where he's a gabbai, and he says to me, Rabbi, isn't the pace nice over here? I said, what do you mean? He says, we have a set time. You got 10 minutes to do all your psukei zimra, start to finish, we end on time. And I'm thinking back to our conversation 13 years ago. I didn't tell him. I just remembered in my mind. I said, okay. So now that you're on board, you're suddenly singing a different tune. So, but wait a second. What he said 10 years ago was right. Meaning, there's certainly something right about the argument that people have to have more heart in it. I'm not arguing with that. But we shouldn't undercut the value of getting what's right done. Just like the example I gave in the beginning. It's not only about intention. You got to get it right. And I proved it to you from the Kuzari. It's not only about intention. Does intention add? Yes. Is it an important factor in everything we do? Yes. The more you have intention, the more valuable what you do is. A guy comes collecting. So you pull out a half shekel piece and you put it in his bucket and you're like, okay, just get out of here. Leave me alone, right? So you don't tell him that. You're nice, you're polite. You don't want the guy next to you to know that that's what you're thinking. But that's what you're thinking. What's your mitzvah of tzedakah? So part of a mitzvah is also your intention, for sure. For sure the intention matters. But you have to see the value in doing what's right, even without the intention. So...
Do you want me to answer what you asked?
I don't know. What did I ask you? I don't know what I asked.
Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope to get my shidduch and get married. Because we're talking about marriage. And I Be'ezrat Hashem, hope to have that strength to make an iced coffee.
Good.
You need a coffee maker.
Mordechai got so excited when you came on, I could barely continue talking. It's good to see you. Erev Tov. Mordechai Dominitz is joining us. I have no idea from where, and it might be classified information. I don't know if he could tell us, but we don't hear you. But maybe that has something to do with my thing. No, because we heard other people. Shalom Mordechai. Erev Tov. Erev Tov. Okay, next question. Yes.
Birkat Hamazon at a restaurant.
Yes.
Is it my table because I've paid for the food, or is it the restaurant's table because they've kindly cooked it?
Why does it matter?
For the blessing at the end.
Yeah,
do
which
I say
blessing?
the blessing on the people of the restaurant, or do I say it on myself?
Which? Why don't you say both?
Can we say both?
Yeah, you can say both.
We add an extra line if we do both ways.
Huh?
You just basically repeat that line with the parentheses and without the parentheses.
You're asking, do I say oti vet beiti vet kol sheli?
Yeah.
Or do I say balabait hazeh? So it happens to be a big discussion in halacha, how we view it. Yeah, it happens to be a very good question. So first off, whatever you do, you're right. Okay, so that's always good. But in my humble opinion, you could say both.
That's about bite, and you can also get a blessing.
Right, but the intention of blessing Baal Bayit is because he gave you from his food. He didn't give you from his food here. You paid for it. So that's why I don't so much, in my humble opinion, I do not go with that opinion. In my understanding, you paid, it's yours, Gamarno. It doesn't matter if you ate here, you ate somewhere else. It's your food. If he was so nice and he gave you a free meal, then you give him a blessing. But, nothing was on the house, so why should you bless the house? I'm saying you could say thank you, you could be polite, but your blessing, I don't see it that way. But not everyone agrees with me. There are two opinions.
What if we're at somebody's house and we're eating and
But by the way, in a yeshiva, it's not the same thing. Because what you're paying is a fraction of the cost.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're paying full tuition and everything. You're still not covering the cost. I'll get to you in 1 second. Yeah?
Similar question.
Yeah.
Second part of that question was go to the registrar's house.
When I was flying, flying back to America at one time, it was an international flight. It was quite long. It was 9 hours, so they served us a meal. So I got the kosher meal, obviously, and had a bread roll. So I said, I washed it, and I said hamotzi. And I was talking to the guy next to me who was also Orthodox Jew. We were talking about what should one say for if one's on an airplane. So should you say should you bless the Albayit, who in this case would be the pilot?
No, you paid for the meal. It's yours. It's not the Balbai. It's not his food. It's your food. You paid for it.
We have a lot to thank the pilot for letting us not die.
I don't know about that.
It wasn't a serious discussion, but it was still,
I hear.
it was still
Okay.
a discussion nonetheless.
I hear you.
I remember mine. Let's say so I started in yeshiva. We would be saying our blessing on the Rosh Yeshiva, correct?
Some say like that.
The Rebbe said, as you know, was nifta several months ago. Do we still bless her even though she's nifta?
Nope.
We just leave that blank at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But not so clear to me that you're blessing him, but to say that.
Who would you say it on then?
Maybe the donors. It's not his.
Well,
I view myself.
So you'd say master of this
say
house,
Machon
lady.
Meir in general.
Right.
So you would say master of this house, lady of this house, and leave it for Hashem to interpret
Yeah.
who the master lady is.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, I'm not, Rabbi Gun doesn't own everything in Machon Meir. He's, it's not nice to say, but I'll tell you, I view myself, I'm rabbi of the shul, right? So there are a lot of things that are my responsibility to decide on. And I always tell the Gabbaim, this is not my shul. I'm a servant here. I'm a public servant. This is the tziburs, it's Klal Yisrael's shul. I have certain responsibilities, which include certain decision-making responsibilities. Fine, but it's not mine.
So what would you say then? Because you're not going to say master of this house and lady of this house.
I would say that. I would say So you can skip it, or you can say Baalei Habayit Hazeh, the owners of this house, whoever that is. David was waiting for us, so I'll get to you. Yes.
Another question. Similar.
If it's built on the same
Yeah,
topic,
it's
then
built on the
ask
same
the
topic.
question I afterwards.
I'm going to be a madrich at a yeshiva.
Is a yofi. You're leaving here?
Yes, unfortunately.
That's bad news. Good. We're waiting for you. Good.
The way that their dorm situation works is that they rent out family-sized apartments in the neighborhood, and they have a madrich, and then living in charge of the house, and then they have students living in there. So I would be in charge of this house, making sure report problems to the higher ups and all this stuff. Am I considered in that sense? And another sense is the Balabayat in this house, because for many intents and many purposes, I'm the one in charge of the house.
It's the idea of blessing the Balabayit is an idea of ownership. Is he giving you the food you're eating? So you're the dorm counselor. You're not giving them the food they're eating. You don't own that food. You're not paying for that food. So it's a very good idea to tell them that they should start having this habit of blessing the dorm counselor. I'm all for that. But to say that the blessing of the Balabayit should be on you, you're not the Balabayit. I'm sorry. You're not. Yes, David.
Okay, so regarding the 9 days from Rosh Chodesh Av until Tisha B'Av, we are supposed not to do any risky actions or just to abstain from those kind of risky things where you could get hurt. I understand that in Tisha B'Av many bad things happen, but what about the 9 days? Why are there any? What's the significance in this period of time that we are more likely to get hurt in such cases or risky situations? Maybe there are statistics or.
The question was asked. We know the halacha towards the end of the laws of the 9 days says, be careful not to hit the kids during this time. And from there we extrapolate, don't do anything that could ultimately lead to something that would, God forbid, cause harm, bodily harm to someone, right? So people don't go boating during the 9 days, and people abstain from anything that has a certain higher risk factor, even though it's something that would be permissible all year long. It's not suicidal. It's not really dangerous. It's just got a certain risk factor involved that makes it that we would abstain from it. So the question was asked, well, we know Tisha B'Av bad things happened on. What happened on all these days of Av that we're suddenly saying, be careful? So let's look at the source of this halacha. There are really two sources. Let's see, do we have time to look them up? We'll start with one, and if we have time later, we'll actually go to the other. The first source is the Talmud. The Talmud says to us, Mishenichnas Av, from when the month of Av enters, Mima'atin besimcha, we diminish forms of happiness. Uvar Yisrael deitle dina, when a Jew has a court case with a non-Jew, lishtamit minei, try to avoid him. Deria mazale, because the Jew has a harmed mazel. Oh, wait a second, what's mazel? So we know. So we know one type of mazel, right? One type of mazel is that Oved Kochavim Umazalot, those who worship the zodiac, right? But there's another type of mazel. When the Talmud discusses an ox killing someone or killing another animal, so the Talmud says, Adam, a human being, itle mazla, he has a mazel. Behema letla mazla, but an animal doesn't have mazel. And Rashi over there says that the word mazel means the angel that's protecting the human being. That we view it as there's something up there. I don't want to quote the Disney song, "Angel Watching Over Me," right? No one here knows it but me. Wow. Okay. So at any rate, I'll tell you the whole song, but it's the 9 days. I can't. Okay. So at any rate, the word mazel doesn't only mean what we think zodiac or luck. There is something called itle mazla. There's another place in Talmud, this concept of adam itle mazal, the human being has, and in that context, the Gemara says it's harder to kill human than an animal, because a human being has a godly factor called an angel or a heavenly intervention that's fighting to keep him alive. Now, Ria Mazale, your support system from above is diminished. That means, I was driving in the car, and one of the kids decided that the door wasn't closed well. So as we're driving, he opens the door and closes it. So I was a little surprised. And then he realized it wasn't his door that wasn't open well. So he leaned back and opened the back door and closed that as we're driving. So then I pulled over to the side and I said, what'd you just do? And I just closed the door. So I said, you closed the door as the car was moving. And he said, yeah, what's the big deal? And I said, well, let me show you. And as we were driving, so I pulled over next to cars. I started driving really close to the cars on the side of the street. And I said, did you notice how close I was to the car next to us? Do you realize that if a person, God forbid, opens a door and it hits the mirror or anything of another door, it comes flying back? That person, I don't know what will happen to them when with that velocity, a car door, God forbid. I said, you can't factor, you were leaning back, opening the door, you can't factor what's going on. So he says to me, but it worked out all right. So I said, let me tell you about Evil Knievel. Who's Evil Knievel? I said, So I said, look, there were a lot of Evil Knievels. There's one famous one, but there were many. And basically the idea goes like this. Evil Knievel used to do amazing stunts with his motorcycle. He used to calculate many factors and drive, right up his motorcycle, speed across, and then fly over a canyon and land on the other side with a Yahoo. Now, Evil Knievel was great, and he would do this over and over again, all his feats, until he died. Until, one time the wind went against him, one time, and he didn't make it to the other side of the canyon, and he splattered on some canyon, right? So then it wasn't Evil Knievel, but there were many. Okay, if Evil Knievel didn't get splattered, there were plenty of others who did. So at any rate, what I was telling him is, there are things you could do. I always marvel at all those people who ride motorcycles, because you can do something that's risky and get away with it. But you have to realize that when you do the same risky thing 1,000 times, if your odds are 1 in 1,000, then that means that the odds are this person won't live. Whether it'll happen the first time or the 50th time or the 1,000th time, I don't know. But there is this concept that, you're doing something which when the wind goes against you, you might end up splattered on the wall of a canyon and not on the other side. It just could happen. Now, what are the odds? So Ria Mazale means, ordinarily, there's this intervention. Milemala, they're trying to help you. You do stupid things, so sometimes you'll get away with it and sometimes you won't. But on the month of Av, when we start the month of Av in Shamayim, they say you should know you got to strike against you. Your support system is weakened, so to speak. Ria Mazale. If ordinarily there's an extra boost from above, here you're not getting that. It's weakened. Yes.
When would an activity be statistically so dangerous that you could say it's usher?
It's a very good question.
In other words, just being evil can evil usher.
Right. I don't know of an accurate statistic, but I will say that there are situations, and these are situations that we have to deal with in halacha. There are situations where, I'll give you an example. Sometimes a person has a disease. They have to undergo a procedure, and that procedure involves risk. But if they don't undergo the procedure, they're going to die. If they don't undergo the procedure, they're going to die in a year or two. And if they undergo the procedure, they might die tomorrow, and they might end up living another 50 years. So in these questions, we actually sit down and try to tease out what are the odds of each outcome. I can tell you there are people that in their first bout of chemo or second bout of chemo died. Meaning it wasn't about that, it's not like they didn't win the disease, they died from the chemo, right? They had a heart attack or whatever and the chemo killed them. So this is a real question we deal with. But it's not as simple as saying, well, what's the stats? Because you're always looking at a question and there are two sides to the question, a do and a don't. How many years ago was it? I don't remember. There was a Jew who opted not to undergo treatment. He had cancer, and he said, forget it. He'll enjoy the time he has left. And thank goodness for him, he had a relative who was a doctor. And his relative sat and learned it. And he called him up and he said to him, look, you're right, there's a risk factor to the treatment, but the risk factor is about 3%. 97% of the people who undergo this come out okay. And if you come out okay, you could live for decades still. You have a long life ahead of you. And the person agreed to undergo the treatment. Initially, he had said no. When he got an accurate explanation of what was going on, and Baruch Hashem, he's with us, So the question is usually two-sided. It doesn't just break down to one. Meaning, you'll tell me, when people skydive, so 99% of the time they're okay. Well, 1% is a big number. Don't go doing something that's 1%.
My maternal aunt in Knievel passed away just a couple of months ago. She did the same thing. Sarah said it. They did the chemotherapy just twice. And the impact, the side effect was so bad that the immune system went down too low that she could not fight anything that's coming.
Yeah. Tov. Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. All right, my name is Anos.
Amen.
Oh, wow, that was a nice cat.
How long ago did I call the pizza?
Text me the receipt.
Go ahead, Mordechai. One thing, but we don't hear you. Can you speak more loudly? Can you up your mic volume, something? I'm on the highest volume here. I think. On the highest volume here. Yeah, that's a little better, yeah.
I asked the question that I asked previously, but the Rav said it might take a while to unpack. If that's okay with other people.
Start and we'll sleep.
Why in this week's parasha, when we attack Sichon, why do we kill the children and the women? And then also in the second war with Up, we also kill the women and the children.
So, the answer I always give to this question.
What's the question?
We have different instances where the Torah says to kill a lot of people. It could be Amalek, it could be the women and children, it could be, Midianites, right? So, the answer I always give is actually a longer answer, but I'm going to try. So, I want to give you the long answer, Mordechai. I was going to give you the short answer, but I'd rather give you the long answer. So, we're about to time out. It's that time again where I have to close down and reopen. But do me a favor, this time you guys should log in quicker. I literally, in 5 seconds, I'm back in here. So if you're joining us, relog in so we can continue. I'm waiting for you to try and address this question, okay? Good.
Okay, quick question in the meantime.
Go ahead.
If I may.
Go ahead.
What's better? Hilunim is, I've come to understand, is a very bad word. It shouldn't be used.
Which word?
Hilunim. It comes from the shoresh of it. Because we don't have Jews that are chol. All Jews are kodesh. Is there
Chiloni doesn't mean
other than
chol.
simply saying lo dati, is there a better word that you know?
Chiloni means non-Kohen.
Huh?
In modern Hebrew, they adulterated it and decided to make it mean that. But really, the word Chiloni means anyone who's not a Kohen.
So it's not a bad word then.
No, but modern Hebrew, they use it that way.
Is there a better word that we could use other than just simply saying lo dati or whatever?
Adain lo shomer Torah u'mitzvot.
That's even worse. There's not like a single word that could be like in English. I might not instead of saying somebody who's non-religious, I might simply say non-observant.
I don't.
It's softer. Is there such a thing in Hebrew?
I'm not familiar. Okay. Let's begin. What a wonderful question. The question was asked here at Machon Meir. How are we to feel or make peace with the mitzvah of killing Amalek or children of Midian or what? Many different mitzvahs. So I want to answer this question with a few stories. So we'll begin with story number one. Story number one is in the beginning of the 12 short prophets called Trei Asar, the book of Hosea. So the prophet says, Ufakadti al Beit Yehu, I will take an accounting with the house of Yehu over the blood of Yisrael, over the blood he spilled from Achav's family in the valley of Yisrael. Now, the obvious question is, God told Yehu to kill out the family of Achav in the valley of Israel. How can the Navi, how can the prophet Hosea say, Mr. Yehu, the king, you and your family will pay the price for killing out Achav and his family? Why? But God told him to do it. It's black and white. It's in the prophet. So our tradition is that when God sent Yehu to kill out Achav, he told him, it says in the Navi, you're supposed to eradicate the idol worship from Israel. When Yehu himself then went on to serve the Baal, to worship those very idols that Achav had, so years later he proved himself unworthy of having killed Achav. So God says, you're going to pay. Who gave you the right to kill Achav? So Yehu's going to answer, God, you did. You told me to do it. And God's going to say, I didn't tell you to do it. If you're going to be just like him, then you have no right. You can't just go and do that. Meaning there's a built-in clause, so to speak, that says you got to do it for the right reasons and you got to live up to those right reasons. Okay? Point number one. Point number two. Story. So we're here in Machon Meir. This guy shows up. He says, Rabbi, I want to enlist in the army. That's why I'm here at Machon Meir. I said, really? Why do you want to enlist in the army? He says, I want to kill Arabs. I said, why do you want to kill Arabs? And he said, well, Rabbi, I want to protect the Jewish people. So the best way to protect the Jewish people is to go kill Arabs. So I said, it's interesting, we just met today. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Now this story is I'm not going into all the details, not exactly the way I'm saying it, but it's almost the way I'm saying it. And the guy's history basically was that about 2 or 3 years before he came here, he was an Arab fundamentalist, killing Christians. And then he became Christian, and he went to fight Arabs. And now he decided he should be here and go kill the Arabs again. So you ask him, why do you want to go kill Arabs? And he says, in the name of God. And I think to myself, really? Which God? Which God in which God's name are you killing? You know. And then he went, I don't remember if to Afghanistan or Iraq. He went, picked up weapons for the United States Army. You know, I don't even remember if he finished his gear process here or did not. And he went to kill Arabs. Okay, he got his license to kill. He got, he joined whichever army. It was the American army. I don't remember where he went to fight Arabs. And he would call me from whatever country it was and tell me how he's being a good Jew. He's protecting the Jewish people. And I'd always ask him, like, I don't know, do Jews need you fighting in Afghanistan? Are you sure? Right? Yeah, Rabbi. Anytime you kill an Arab, the only good Arab is a dead Arab, right? I always wondered, are you really doing that in the name of God? Can you really, hang up your weapon and say, I'm hanging it on God's name, and I'm firing it in God's name? And so you understand when I give these two stories where I'm headed. When the Torah gives you commandment, there has to be a purity of understanding why this is right. And if you're not holding there, so don't pick up a weapon. So if you're new and you came to Machon Meir and you're saying, I don't get it. The Nazis said to kill Jews. The Jews said to kill Amalek. I don't exactly see why this is more legitimate than that. So the answer is, then don't. Learn more Torah. At this stage of your understanding, if you don't see the difference, so then fine, so don't. Don't do it. You can't go and do it and say, I'm doing it in God's name when you have no idea which God's name. You know the guy who came to... there's only one God, by the way, but he might not know that yet. There was a guy who came to the Rosh Yeshiva Torah. What was his name? I forgot his name. I think it was Rav Noach Weinberg. If I'm not mistaken, the story's about him. And he said, right, so I think it was Rav Noach Weinberg. He said to him, I don't believe in God. And he said, neither do I. And he said, you're a rabbi. What do you mean you don't believe in God? He said, well, the God you don't believe in, I don't believe in him either. The one I believe in is not what you don't believe in. You're right. What you think about God, I don't believe in that one either. So coming back to here, you say, how did the Torah give us such a mitzvah? Well, the answer is, you're right in the question. And so long as you have that question, so you're not supposed to join those forces. You'll say, I'm doing all the other mitzvahs, and then when a mitzvah involves pulling a trigger against someone, I have to understand better. So I'm allowed to learn more Torah. I have to understand why Hashem is true, why the Torah is true, why the only good that's in this world is the Torah is good. If you don't yet understand that, then you're right. You're not yet at a place where you should be doing that. By what right? What are you doing? Learn more Torah, understand better. The guy who showed up in Machon Meir and he was a fundamentalist here and a Christian there, and today he's a Jew, so now that's legitimate. He can pick up a weapon. He can't pick up a weapon, no. Make sure you know what you're doing. Because you picked up a weapon, 2 years ago also in the name of God, right? So, saying the question is good, the question is legitimate, and as you build your understanding and appreciation of the true value of the word of the Torah and the values of the Torah, then the question should dissipate. But it's not a whitewashing, which is what might happen, a whitewashing of terms. where you could easily say, no, I'm not killing you. I'm doing God's will over here. Do me a favor. You're bashing a kid's head. You're killing a person. Don't play games. It's real. It's real life. It's real pain. And you, in order to do it, you have to be at a place where you say, yeah, I'm ready to put my life on the line because the Torah is true. I believe this is 100% true, and that's why I'm doing it. And if you're not yet there, fine, that's legitimate. We're a work in progress, so we'll build ourselves up to the point where we'll be there. But the question is not only legitimate, it's necessary. You can't ignore the question. It's a very important person to ask the question, and so long as the person asks the question, so then be honest with yourself. So, okay, I'm not yet holding there. And that's fine. What's not fine, in my humble opinion, is when a person kids himself, when a person lies. When a person picks up a weapon in the name of Torah and he has no idea what Torah is, and that's why I began with the first example, where the prophet the prophet told Yehu to kill out the family of Achav, yet the prophet's telling Yehu, you're going to die for killing the family of Achav. What do you mean? You told me to do it? Right. But you can't just do it if you're not holding where you yourself are pure enough to do what's right. That doesn't work. Then you can't hide behind God's commandment. So, again, I'm touching on the subject from a certain angle. Obviously, there's more to be said, but I hope that gave you a certain direction in thought. Do not walk away from this with a misunderstanding that says, God said so, but I don't have to do it. That's not what I said. I said that if God said so, it's right. But if you're not yet holding at a place where you can appreciate that, then be honest with yourself, and you'll build yourself to that.
Knock, knock, who's there?
So, can I give you the key? Can you put that by Rav Listman's office? I'll give you the key. I got the key. Oh, you have the key.
You got a what? It's a motzi.
Who's?
It's a motzi.
I would think it's a motzi, yes.
I'm putting back this thing, so I'll put it together.
You'll put that there? Thank you very
How
much.
many pizzas?
2.
Rabbi, I still didn't get. I missed the punchline of the iced coffee. So if somebody still makes the iced coffee, but with like their heart is not there, they're angry.
Yes.
So the intention matters or the action matters.
When you don't have the intentions, if you could keep up the good action, then you are, in essence, you are continuing the relationship. And it's the same with your relationship with Hashem. You can't only talk about intention. The guy who says, I'm not into it, I'm not davening today, he's not doing what's right. Consistency is the strength. No, thank you. No. Consistency is incredibly important in any relationship. Shlomo, the guys here are eating pizza, and we're missing you here. I didn't hear you. Oh, enjoy. Yofi.
You got a what? No? It's a motzi?
My question is...
Yeah, that's hamotzi. You should make hamotzi. Yeah.
I thought only if you're having more than 2 slices.
Right, but the Mashgiach told me that the way they make their pizza, it's hamotzi. I don't know. That's what the Mashgiach told me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always cooked here. Someone asked.
Just saying he's asking a question, yeah.
I already made the zone stuff right now. I still make motzi.
Yeah, go. I didn't hear. The guys that go up Tarabais, yeah.
How do they go to the mikvah on Tisha?
I don't know. They'd ask me. I'd tell them not to go.
Not a chance. Fine, but they're going to go anyway. How do they go to the mikvah? Or do they go on Friday or on Shabbos?
Let them ask someone else. I don't want to answer that question. Sorry.
No, I asked Rabbi how much flour is
It's not. Look, if he's
Policy of Machon Meir, the policy of Machon Meir is definitely not to go to Rabbi.
Okay.
I've been told that it's a motzi.
was out when I went to the restaurant. They said it was samosa.
I know they did, but I'm looking at the slice and I'm just not seeing it. So I'm wondering if they're correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was it a rabbi there who said it, or who was
I
that?
am in Kollel, Haredi Kollel.
But the rabbi who's there said it's amotzi. I would trust him. Rabbi Shapiro, who is the mashgiach at Big Apple Pizza.
And he was the one who said it, Rabbi.
Rabbi Shapiro, yeah. I personally spoke to him. It's not a quote. He told me it's amotzi. Rabbi Shapiro is the mashgiach from Rabbi Reuben Zechsher over there. What?
First name?
I don't remember his first name right now.
Is it Mark?
I doubt it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But if I say hamotzi and I'm wrong,
I am in Haredi Kollel.
What?
What?
I am in Haredi Kollel.
That's beautiful. I didn't know that. You're lucky and they're lucky. Yeah.
But I have Hafruta.
Yeah.
And he makes some remarks about the Machon. He praises me, you are the best fruit I had. And he doesn't know, of course he knows that I started my education here and I started learning Gemara here. But he goes on with the subject that his wife told him he shouldn't enter the Machon Meir because it's kind of a church. And I don't answer him. And there's some people who on Yom Ha'atzmaut and don't have a daven there, but they go to daven someplace else because they want and they don't want to say they Tachanun with Halal. And the last time I told him, listen, you tell me these things because you want to have a reaction from me. But I'm going to tell you something, I won't react. And then he was kind of very shocked, very embarrassed, but how do we handle these things?
I move on. I ask people to move on the subject. I smile and move on.
That's the best reaction.
I don't see a point. Most people are not open to listening. So what's the point? They just want you to hear what they have to say. So I listen.
But continue with the Hafruta.
I think what you told him is good. Hopefully he'll stop. Tom, do we have any more questions? Oh yeah, we have questions. But our mouths are full with pizza. What can we do? Mordechai, did I answer your question?
So if it's open,
Yes and no.
That's lovely. Okay, why no?
Like, why specifically sometimes? Like, for example, if I don't have the right knowledge to a mitzvah, right, I'm not always able to do it. Like, let's say I don't necessarily understand tefillin or tzitzit. I still put on tefillin and tzitzit.
Can you answer that question? Can you answer that question? Isn't there a difference between taking a human life and anything else? I think when the Talmud says, how do we know that you're not allowed to take someone else's life to save your own? So the Talmud doesn't quote a verse. The Talmud says it's basic logic. So I think that's your answer. It's not the same thing. It's not the same as anything else.
When Am Yisrael were conquering Eretz Canaan, were they always killing men, women, and children, or was it only sometimes?
Is this important to you?
Yeah.
Why?
Why sometimes would they kill and sometimes wouldn't they?
Because God said so. Saying that's the basic answer. Doing it once is hard enough. saying the difference between once and 100 times or 500 times. I'm not saying that if a person did it once, they should do it twice. But I'm saying whatever answer is going to suffice for once is the answer for 100 times too.
Can I ask my other question about basar v'chalav?
You can try. Everyone's munching on their pizza, but I'm going to let everyone see you. They don't know who's talking here. Yeah. This is Mordechai Dominitz.
Hi, Shalom. How are you?
I'm doing good. Enjoy your pizza.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, 9 days now.
At least when you guys eat your pizza, I can just ask questions.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a question I get as a mashgiach in the army from a lot of Chiloni people, and it's a question which I can't answer. And which also perplexes me in a way. How did we get from the pasuk "Lo levashel b'di b'chalev imo" to the point where if I use this sakum plastic, if I use this sakum with basari, then tomorrow I can't use it with chalavi? Like, how did we get to those grim halachot from that pasuk?
See, so this question really annoys the heck out of me. It's like the kid who showed up Matzai Shabbos, I don't know, 15-year-old, and he says to me, Rabbi, why can't I use electricity on Shabbos? I want you to explain it to me. Why can't I use electricity on Shabbos? I said, okay. So he said, what's the answer? I said, let's make a deal. You explain to me 3 melachot of Shabbat, and we'll talk about electricity on Shabbos. You know, if you have the background, if you know how the laws of Shabbos work, then talk to me about a sophisticated question of electricity. Explain to me how 3 melachot work. Explain to me what the concept of melacha is. Explain to me what the concept of melacha shetzricha legufa is. Explain to me how mavir works. Why is it that if you make a hot coal red hot, that's mavir? So, you know, it's silly. People think that it takes a lot of brains to ask obvious questions. Not really. It takes a lot of brains to understand the answer. Any dunce can ask, why did God create evil in the world? Why is there death? Why is there pain? Okay, so you're very smart. You're asking an age-old question. Very smart enough to hear the answer. So what annoys me about it is that people think that because they're smart enough to ask a question, so they're also smart enough to understand the answer. And that's just a fallacy. There's nothing right about that. You wouldn't think for a second. I said to the kid when he came to me, I said, I want you to explain to me, I'm going to go now and push the gas on the car. Why is the car moving forward? I have 3 minutes. Could you explain it to me? I said, that's what you just did. You said to me, I have 3 minutes. Explain to me why on Shabbat I can't use electricity. What do you understand about Shabbat? That what basis can I use to explain it to you? You know about spark plugs? You know about gas? You know about pistons? You know about the relationship between pressure and heat? And what can I explain to you? I got to give you a whole class in physics to explain to you how an engine works. So now you want me to tell you why electricity on Shabbat is asur? What do you know about Melechet Boneh? What do you know? Explain to me. Do you know the Jerusalem Talmud on Boneh? What do you know? So you want me to water down the Torah to a very, very, very watered down level and then explain it to you. Well, not everything can be watered down that way. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, I can give you a very superficial answer. So I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about all the people who are asking you. Did they ever learn how any pasuk in Torah is darshaned? Do they want the book on logic that Rav Pesach Zatzal wrote that shows how the laws of in it's not induction when the pasuk I'm losing my English. There are laws of how inference. The laws of inference, how the same laws of inference that are used in legal structures all over the world to define constitutions and laws are the same laws that Chazal used in their laws of inference. So Rav Pesach Zatzal wrote a book taking the 13 laws of derivation and explaining how they are exactly in line with the laws of inference. Good, go study law, Go study laws of inference. You want to understand how lo tevashel gdi b'chalev imo, what that means. Ein baya. Explain to me the term tevashel. Do you know what the word tevashel means? Is baking bishul? What does the word tevashel mean? What's gedi? The Torah was only concerned about a gedi. So we have a rule that the Torah used certain animals as prototypes. How do I know that? By laws of inference and other places in the Torah where the Torah used terms of meat. So the term gedi is to tell me a mammal that has a mother, that has milk. It's not there to tell me about a gedi. But that involves a law of inference. In order to know that law of inference, I have to understand what a concept of a binyanav is. A binyanav is a concept that I'm saying that when the Torah used certain terminology, it's to extrapolate. It's not to use that specific. How do I know when it extrapolates and how to extrapolate? Oh, that's a whole other system to learn. So in Maya, come, let's open the Sifri. Let's learn Rabbi Yishmael Omer. Let's learn the explanation of the Ravid and Rashi and learn that law of inference. And then we'll understand the word Gedi in that pasuk. We still didn't get to the word Chalev. We still didn't get to the word Imo. So I'm saying you're taking something which is a very good question. It's legitimate. But why? The reason it annoys me is because when Rabbi Lau, the father, was chief rabbi of Israel, so a few hundred professors came to talk to him about Jewish ethics and the passing of life and when a person is legally dead and when not. So he stood up to have the conversation with them and he said, before I begin, I just want to ask one question of all the professors here. I said, yeah. He said, I'd like you to tell me what is written in a mezuzah. What text is in a mezuzah? So there was silence in the whole room. A few hundred professors are here to talk about Jewish ethics and Jewish law, and none of them knew what was written in a mezuzah until one raised his hand. And he ventured. He said, does it say Tfilah Saderech?
Wow.
I heard this straight from Rabbi Lau. So Rabbi Lau said, excuse me, gentlemen, you don't know the pasuk of Shema Yisrael. You don't know what it says in the Torah, Shema Yisrael, in that one chapter that every Jew is supposed to say twice a day. But you want to go up to the highest level of life and death and discuss with me Jewish ethics and when a person is legally alive and when they're legally dead and when you could take organs out of them and when you're going to cause their death. Excuse me. You don't know what a basic child is supposed to know. A 6-year-old or an 8-year-old knows what's in a mezuzah. You don't know that. But you want to discuss this with me. So I'm saying it's the same thing. You know, people ask a question. Yeah, let's discuss. You know how many people started contacting me about abortions and Jewish law ever since this is a big topic in the United States now, right? So, okay, I try to answer them, but it's really silly. You want to know Judaism, come to yeshiva, come learn, and you'll know. You'll understand. But you want to sit and say, I don't get it. You're right. You don't. You're right. It takes a little bit of learning.
We do, but what should one do now?
Learn.
I don't know all the talk, but I gotta know like what to do.
What to do? We know what to do. Well, hopefully it's not relevant to you right now about doing an abortion.
Somebody's asking because it's probably relevant.
So when they ask a rabbi who hopefully knows what he's talking about and gives them an answer what the halach is. You want to understand how we get there, so come learn. That's why yeshiva's open with a lot of books and learn. It's legitimate. I'm saying it's two types of questions. Someone came to me yesterday with a question, and I asked him, are you asking me to understand or are you asking me to know what to do? So he was arguing with me for 10 minutes, and at some point I gave up. I was like, you didn't learn this. You're wasting my time. So I said to him, what do you want? You want to know how this works in halacha? So come, here are the books. Go study them. You want to know what to do? I'll tell you what I think the halacha is. You don't have to listen to me, but I can tell you. So he said, no, tell me what to do. So I told him what to do. So then he came back with 3 questions from what he had studied. So I said, look, it's not fair. You want to learn, so come learn. Stay there. Learn. It's, you're taking a very complex situation in halacha. You want to learn it. But it's 2 different questions. But that's what I'm saying. It's people ask these questions and they feel like just because they know the question means that you can give them I love it when people come and say, Rabbi, I have a short question. Great. Short question doesn't mean it's a short answer. No, it's just a short question. Okay. What can I do? I'm saying that's... Yes.
So, this is a question I asked in an earlier shiur, but the answer wasn't very long or thorough. So I want to see if we can get a good answer out of you. How do we approach people in a situation with someone with mental illness who might be suicidal or very depressed, and the sadness of Tisha B'Av? Because what are you supposed to do on Tisha B'Av? You're supposed to be sad. And everyone around you is sad. So if you put someone who's depressive or who might be even suicidal in that kind of situation, it could, bipolar, you could make the situation worse for them. So, and I'm not asking this question in specifics, but how do we approach mental health when it comes to situations of pikuach nefesh? Is this another one of those questions?
I think I'll be able to answer you pretty quickly. Shalom, everyone. The question was asked. Approaching Tisha B'Av, there are people who have mental health issues. There can be a person who's bipolar. There can be a person who's depressed, and obviously there are gradations in this. And the question is, if Tisha B'Av is going to throw them into a loop and might be very dangerous for their mental health, so does halacha take that into account? So I'll tell you a story. I got a phone call from a relative of someone who was in a mental hospital. And they said to me that they feel like their relative is going to be very in danger from Tisha B'Av because it could really get them back into depression and knock them out of functional society. So I said, okay, so let them function like a regular day. So then they shouldn't do, what we do on Tisha B'Av. So they said, yeah, but my relative wants to sense Tisha B'Av. It's Tisha B'Av. I said, let me think about it. And after a day or two, I came back to them and I said, so tell your relative that they should take 3 coins. Here in Israel, every coin has the shape of the menorah to commemorate the Beit HaMikdash. And they should put those 3 coins in a tzedakah box. And if they want to, they could say, Shir Amalos B'shuv Hashem et Shivat Zion. And in that way, they'll remember that today's Tisha B'Av. And then they should go on to eat breakfast and lunch and supper and move on with their lives. Now, what's the logic behind that? The person wanted to do something to connect to Tisha B'Av. Fine. So he did something. And it's good that he did something. It's good that he wanted to do something. The flip side is, we view mental health as pikuach nefesh. The Mishnah in Shabbos says that if a person is going to go into depression, if a person is going to stop being a functioning member of society, that's called pikuach nefesh. We turn on a light for them on Shabbat, it says, right? Ruach ra'ah, the Mishnah calls it, okay? And the Rishonim write, melancholy, right? That's sadness, that's depression, that's what, they use their terminology, we use our terminology. But you see, in halacha, melancholy is sadness. It's a more sophisticated word, Latin maybe for sadness. But my point is that when possible, it's always good to ask a shaila. Some people use fancy terminology for things that are really not fancy. A husband and a wife have a normal argument, and the wife goes on Facebook and write, "My husband was just verbally abusive." You use that terminology in Gamarnu. What did he do? You called him a rotten skunk. And he said, and you're a skunk. He didn't say you were rotten. Okay. So now, what? Verbal abuse. Okay. So I'm just saying, so people will sometimes use the term depressed, panic attack, and all kinds of terminologies that really have, these terms are defined in medicine. But people use them freely, so it's not fair to take this concept now and say, okay, so this person's depressed and that person's this, and no one has to fast on Tisha B'Av. That's not what we just said. We said that the halacha factors it in. It certainly has a very serious place in halacha, and it would be recommended that when possible, a person should ask a shaila, when possible. But the concept is that we certainly view mental health as being something critical, excuse the pun. Okay?
That was very similar to the answer that Rabbi gave me, but I like it because it was more in depth.
Okay. I was wondering if I'd pass. Yes, who's on first?
Never know. Maybe she felt very abused, so what can you do?
Maybe. Is what she feels the definition of what happened? Is that fair? Yes. I hope you didn't feel that was... Yes.
The Rambam
Surely they told me you have a sense of humor. I'm joking. They didn't talk about you. But Yes.
The Rambam writes in Hilchot
Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see you. Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, these beautiful
that
flowers.
it's forbidden for a Jew to leave Eretz Israel at all times, unless if there's like severe famine in the land, or for business temporarily, or to rescue Jewish money from non-Jews, or to get married, or to study Torah. And my question is, if he says that it's forbidden for a Jew in Eretz Israel to leave Chutz La'aretz at all times, are people that leave, or people that come to Eretz Israel maybe for a year, for a gap year program for yeshiva, and then with the intention to leave, are they transgressing a negative commandment? To not leave, you have to stay here.
So I have another question for you. We know that Rambam was incredible, really incredible. But we also know that not in every matter do we rule like the Rambam. So why are we focusing on the Rambam in this matter? What Rambam wrote happens to be in the Talmud, but why are we focusing on the Rambam in this? Saying there is Shulchan Aruch.
It's very strong language.
Right, but maybe we don't rule like the Rambam.
So how do we rule?
So I'm saying Rav Moshe Feinstein visited Israel and he did leave. So they say that the Rebbe of Chabad didn't come to visit for that reason. He didn't want to transgress that Rambam's opinion. But I don't think we rule like that Rambam. I think we rule not even like the Shulchan Aruch, but rather like the Gra on the Shulchan Aruch. That basically for legitimate reasons you could leave. Legitimate reason might be parnasa, might be to find a wife, might be to visit your parents. So I think that's how we rule. Yes.
Quick one. So you're at a restaurant. You go to wash your hands. You say, "Wow, what a nice bathroom! Running water." You end up using the toilet. How do you proceed at that point? Do you have to exit, say one blessing, re-enter, re-wash, and then re-exit, or is there a simpler way to do it?
Now I'm lost. I didn't follow the question.
The bathroom, use the restroom.
Right.
Use it to relieve oneself.
Right.
And also wash for eating before a meal at the same time, or do you need to make two separate trips?
So you're saying the washroom is outside of the bathroom. Your question is?
It's in the bathroom. It's all in one room.
Is the bathroom in its own stall? Is it enclosed in its own thing? I'm saying sometimes.
Very often, what?
Sometimes it's in the stall with you, so that's a different problem. Meaning, if it's not in the same stall, at least the bathroom has its own stall that's enclosed. So even if it's in the same room, that would be okay. But we would say to make sure to first wash your hands, and then to wash with a cup, meaning clean your hands like you would after coming out of a bathroom.
So wash both ways.
However you want to clean your hands after using the facilities. You could wash them with soap. You can do whatever you want.
That, though, you have to do the three, one, three, the other.
So I said not like that.
What?
I said not like that.
Okay, it's just regular washing.
Yes.
Okay.
You can wash your hands. A person that uses the facilities can just wash their hands. Now, you want to continue and take a cup and wash your hands twice, pour water on each hand for the hamotzi, you can do that. Right after the hamotzi, you'll say your asher yotza. It's provided it's not in the stall. Provided there's like some way that's separating between the actual bathroom and the sink.
It's a single room, typically.
If it's a single room, you shouldn't wash your hands for bread in there, and you should find another way to wash your hands after you're using the facilities. Maybe fill the cup and go outside and wash your hands.
You should not wash for bread inside that.
No.
Yeah.
Usually in Israel, the always outside.
Ari, it's good to have you on board. Ari Friedman's joining us from Beersheba, I imagine. Our free session over here is going to end in 2 minutes. So I'm going to shut it right now and re-log in. And literally in 5 seconds you could log in because I literally shut it and log in. So you're all invited to re-log in 5 seconds. Later. Asher was waiting. I'll get to.
Asher was next.
Sorry. Yes, Asher.
So I just want to know your opinion on this point. Like, we have been learning, and first of all, I declare myself still learning.
I'm also still learning.
So I don't want to be in that point like you need to come and learn. I'm still learning. The question is just a rough opinion. What I think was it will be that, but it might be wrong. So we've been learning Sefer Yeshua. We've been learning the Chumash all the time. It's been 2 years now. What I see is every time where there is a plan of Am Yisrael to come to Israel, there's always a brit. Even Yehoshua made it. It seems like a mistake because they went to the white eye, but then they have to go back to the black eye, and they have to make the brit, and then only start conquering the land. And I find this brit very interesting because it happens all the time when it comes to Israel. And I'm just thinking because Rabbi was talking about the mitzvah coming to Israel, and that Esther was opposing again. No, it's time of the Mashiach. But both of them give kind of a hint when is the time for Mashiach, when is the right time for us to do Mashiach. And I find, and with the opinion of different rabbis and Machon Meir, the rabbis they say now is the time. And if now is the time, won't we need the breed, or do we really need the breed in order to for the Mashiach to come, in order for the Beit HaMikdash to be built? Because that is Tisha B'Av. And for me, I felt that I think we need the breed in order to fulfill the Mashiach and also the construction of the Beit HaMikdash again. And I want to know if Harav thinks the same or a different. I hope my questions understandable.
אבל המגבלות בפועל מונעות מהאדם להפסיק את רצונו. התסכול הזה עלול לשגע את האדם. והרעש שתהליך התשובה הולך בין בקשה מהשם שאת מה שאנחנו לא צריכים לתקן ייקח הקדוש ברוך הוא שיודע את רצוננו באופן הכי אמיתי.
I'm gonna make it very short. I don't know. I'm saying I could explain why I don't know, but I'm not sure you'll gain that much from it. I'm saying there's to go into all the nuances of why. It's just I don't know. When you find out, tell me. Say there. I hear your question. I
find like we feel really longing for it. We should do it. I feel like we should do it, and that might something might work. I'm like in the process, but
I want to think about it. I want to think about it. I never thought of it the way you're saying it, so I want to think about it. I think it was next. Yeah.
Regarding this question about washing inside the bathroom, all you're doing is the action of washing itself. You're not going to bless inside the bathroom. You're going to go outside and bless. And if you drag your hands, you haven't really completed the action for which you're blessing. So what's the problem? What's wrong with washing your hands inside the bathroom?
I'll give one answer. I'll give one answer. Stay there. There's more. We'll stick to one for now. In the Gemara and in the Shulchan Aruch, it says that a person that enters a bathroom has to wash their hands. So long as you're in the bathroom, you still have to wash your hands. So to say, I washed my hands, but you're still there. So Chazal meant when you leave, you have to wash your hands. So to try to wash your hands in there is like taking, a dead rat with you into the mikveh and saying, I toivel. But you're still holding the rat. Say that? Yeah. Say there. More questions? Okay. Good evening, Ari. It's exciting. We're getting a question from Ari. Yes.
question, unless you're interested. But the more practical halachic question, with regards to heating up chicken on Shabbat, if the chicken is something that on Shabbat day, that if you were to put it on the plata, any sort of oil or juice or whatever that's gonna melt off of the chicken itself and then make some sort of puddle, which the chicken kind of heats in, is that considered cooking, or recooking, and therefore a sort for Ashkenazim to do on Shabbat, or is it something that is acceptable even though there is some sort of solid or whatever solid fat turning into liquid surrounding the chicken.
Okay, you began with the chicken, that the oils come out of the chicken, and you ended with a chicken that has fat surrounding it, which will melt. Those are two different questions. Which is our question, or are both our questions?
I mean, technically both. I think it depends on what kind. Some of them it's surrounded by a sauce that once it's been put in the refrigerator, the sauce hardens, and then some of them, even when you take the chicken away from the sauce, there's still a little bit of residue left on the chicken itself, and then that itself melts into a formidable enough quote unquote puddle of chicken liquid that warrants a question.
Okay, so let me get a Shulchan Aruch, and I'll read you what it says there. Say there. 1 second. What? I'm taking advantage of this excuse of them getting Shulchan Aruch to get a cup of coffee. But thanks for the offer. Now they know. So give me a second. I'll be right back.
Right over there, so I think I just get it for you.
Give me 1 second. Say that.
You didn't know right there. Check the midnight scrolls.
I thought that was very proper. You were index.
Ari, so whatever it's worth, most people in the schooner leave their chicken on all night. Coming and going.
Struck off your up, never good to hear your voice. What?
Especially with your fermentable. But you understand what most people in the schooner do here. They leave the chicken on all night.
They leave the chicken on all night, but sometimes...
Did you have pizza?
Did
you do your customers
the question is if it's not going to overcook that way.
No, but I can answer.
No, it's not.
I think I'm allowed
This is an Albuquerque.
Yeah, let's do some. Let's do some.
Ask my wife if that's an option.
No, he can wait.
She's the cook in the...
Oh, you're good news. Hello.
Or you make
Thank
a
you for your
choice.
question.
Make a choice chicken.
Good question. Relevant.
He can answer.
When we have children,
As long as this is the first paragraph, when you say it's his own man, or he says it on his own afterwards.
See what their Rob has to say.
yeah, I'm waiting for the answer. Looking forward to it. Happy he finally is teaching. It's been too long.
I can have it, but don't you have a third?
Looking forward to seeing you sometime. Perhaps in a wave.
Halavai and a double halavai.
Okay. Right now we're
Watch this.
Alright.
Okay.
Amen. Amen.
Really hope you want to. Wow, let me go get the Shulchan Aruch. Now you guys been schmoozing with them?
Send Meir a warm personal mazel tov. I mean, thank you.
Okay, I thought half a cookie looked like.
You want me to put this in the Christmas office, right?
Good, I appreciate it. You're going to sleep?
Yeah.
Good for you. That's a smart move.
Liלה טוב, אשי.
Shalom. Thank you for your help.
אשי זריבל.
One second. I didn't hear you. Give me 1 second.
לילה טוב, אשי.
Light up, Tom. Thank you for all your help. Light up, Tom. L'chaim. I enjoy it more when you're here drinking it with me, Ari. It's been a few years. Ari used to come in from Beersheba to learn with us Friday mornings. Ari from all over the country came to learn. Yeah. Oh, so I was just about to say, I wouldn't say the good old days. They were good there. There's a good that's here now. You know, each one with its own good.
Each one with its own good, but I have to say that at least for me, it's I miss it very much.
Yes, that was a beautiful component of life.
Yes.
Our learning Friday mornings, yes. And I have not replaced it in my life either. That's the truth. I don't know. You know, I gave a class this morning to a group of guys that were all bummed out that they're going out on. They said, don't even call it vacation. It's called family time. We're going to be spending our time running after little kids. We're not going to get to breed. We're not going to get. It's not called a vacation. It's called family time. So I spoke to them about the idea that there are different stages in life, and if you walk into the time you have off now, and you want to be a bachelor drinking a beer, so then you're going to look at life now and say, what a bummer. But if you say, you know, this is where I'm holding now, these are the blessings of this stage of life. So it's a different approach. And it's an important, you know, if you realize you're in a different stage in life, so each stage has its blessings. You know, Purim this year, I was hospitalized. And the doctor said to me, you were dancing like you were 16. I said, yeah, I felt like I was 16. He said, yeah, but your body doesn't think it's 16 anymore. You can't dance like that anymore. So I tore a muscle in my leg. said, "Yeah, you're not 16 anymore. So there's dancing for when you're 16, and dancing when you're not 16. So, in life, when you realize different stages have different, So then, if you're at peace with it, you can also be happy with the blessings that come with the different stages in life. So that yeah, you're a Mada guy. I shouldn't tell you these things. You right away interpret it into yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna talk some French with you. Do we have any Frenchmen here?
No, they have their own department.
They left.
They have their own department. Okay. Says the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Says the Shulchan Aruch. Mutar liten infanda. Okay? You're allowed to place the infanda dish. What's infanda? So infanda was what we might call a complicated burekas. It had a lot of layers of dough. And inside the dough, they had pieces of meat. And when they'd heat it up, so then the meat inside the dough would start oozing out oils. So you're allowed to place this infanda, imagine a meat-filled burekas, כנגד האש במקום שהיד צולדת, ואף על פי שהשומן שבה שנקרש חוזר ונימוח. Even though when you're going to put it to reheat, you're not putting it on the fire, but when you reheat it, you put it on the floor next to the fire, right? So when you reheat it, what's going to happen is some juices, some of the gravy is going to start oozing out of the meat. So that's still permissible. That's still permissible because we view it as something dry that you placed next to the fire. You didn't do anything. You placed a dry infanda, dry burekas, and then the meat that had juices absorbed in it slowly started oozing out the juices from the heat. That's okay. Okay, so we're dealing only with your question. We're not dealing with the laws of cooking. We're not dealing with the laws of placing things next to a fire. I'm dealing with your question specifically. You asked, am I allowed to put meat that will ooze out juices? You said you're asking both questions. So we're starting with that one. So that, says the Shulchan Aruch, that's okay. So
Talking about putting it on a blech.
What'd you say, Mr. Grafstein?
Didn't follow me, you roughed me out there. We're talking about putting it on a blech.
No, he's talking about you have a little bonfire going. You have a fireplace, and you're going to put it on the side of the fireplace, on a chair or something, where it's warm enough that it'll heat up and it'll start oozing out. You're not putting it over the flame like a blech or stuff like that. He said, "Keneged aish." That's why I said we're not going into all the laws of how to deal with the fire on Shabbos. We're dealing with one question: can I put it, in a hot place next to the fireplace? We're going to move on to your next question, and here we shift to Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, on whose grave it is etched out, "Mimoshe ad Moshe lo kam kemoshe." People think it's Rambam. Yeah, but it says it on the Ramah's grave, "Mimoshe ad Moshe lo kam kemoshe." So we move on, and the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, tells us Ashkenazim, those of us who are Ashkenazim here, V'chol shekain, and certainly kedera sheyesh barotev shenikrash. If you have a pot with some congealed gravy, so then kishe hashuman nimoach eino va'ayin. So here we have two questions we're dealing with, and the question is, which one am I talking about? If I'm talking about nolad, that I'm causing the gravy to come oozing out. So that's okay in terms of nolad. If I'm talking about the problem of bishul, so here I have a different problem. That if I'm going to put dry gravy and it's going to turn moist now, so I have a problem of bishul. Why? Like you said, that I'm not allowed to recook liquids. And here it's going to become a liquid. And even on the point of nolad, the Ramah writes, Yesh machmirim v'nagu lehachmir. Our custom is that we don't, we go, says the Ramah, with the more stringent opinion that says I have a problem of nolad and I have a problem, the problem of bishul was mentioned earlier. So that's why when we want to reheat food on a plata, what we do is we make sure there's no gravy that's congealed that'll turn into liquid. That's Ashkenazim. We wipe it clean. Now, if more gravy will come out of the chicken, I don't care. But in order for me to reheat food on Shabbos morning, the food that we reheat is going to be a schnitzel. It's going to be maybe a roasted chicken if I don't have gravy on the bottom of the pot or the bottom of the pan. But I don't reheat it when I actually see gravy that's going to turn liquid and going to reheat for the very reasons you mentioned. Okay, so that's your second question, the answer for Ashkenazim on your second question. And for Sephardim, it would seem that it's even more stringent, not less stringent.
Thank you. And what about if you were to take the pieces of chicken out of the pot with the hardened sauce and put it onto a different?
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do.
And even if there's still some, and if there's just inevitably some residue of gravy on those chickens, do you put them on the plata in a new pan? Is that beseder, or is that also considered re-cooking?
There will be those that say it's not okay, and I think one can rely on those that say it is okay. Okay.
Are you open up for another question?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Wait. Before you stop the broadcast, maybe we should tell the people. Do we have any viewers? Do we know?
I mean, it's a live stream on YouTube, but afterwards we could upload to YouTube. People are gonna watch it afterwards.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just saying if we have live viewers, they could come to the Zoom channel. So anyone who doesn't have the Zoom link can send me a WhatsApp message, and I'll send them the Zoom link. I see we have 2 viewers here. It says 2 on
two
that.
viewers, yeah. Right.
Okay, so our 2 viewers, I'll give you my number. You could send me a WhatsApp message. I'll send you the link to the Zoom if you want to join us over Zoom. My phone number is 054-215-6447. And if you happen to be outside Israel, so then the country code is +972. And then you drop the 0, then it's 972, right? That's the country code. And then 54-215-6447. We're closing up shop here on the YouTube broadcast, but we're continuing to learn here at Machon Meir, so you could join us on Zoom.